Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Boxes and Elbows. I know it's been a while since I last recorded an episode, and literally the day before the Knicks parade was the last time I uploaded an episode. And then after that, I was like, that parade took everything out of me. So I'm going to talk about the Knicks parade, my reaction, and some stories I have from that. We're going to talk about the Giannis trade because Giannis finally got traded. And then we're going to talk some off-season stuff. I mean, there's been extensions, there's been drama, and everything in between. And so let's just get right into it. And I do have the hiccups, so if you hear me hiccup during this episode, I tried to get rid of it, and it's probably just going to stay for a little bit. So hopefully it doesn't really impact the episode. And yeah, let's just dive right into it. So the day before the Knicks parade was the last time I uploaded an episode, and I had to get up super duper early for the parade. I got up at like 3:30 in the morning. I got to the city around like 5:30. Got to our spot in the parade around like 6, and I hear a lot of people say that they got to their spots or whatever around like 5, even earlier than I did, and still couldn't get in. And so I guess me and my dad just got really, really lucky. I mean, we literally got off like Fulton Street, which is where a lot of people got off, but I think they went the wrong direction. We ended up going a little bit left towards the train station, but not too far from it. And we were on this we were on the championship like parade route, but we were on this like sidewalk kind of, and luckily for me, we were by the barriers, which meant I could sit up because I'm short as hell, and I could see the floats and everything, and I could have a good view. But unfortunately, those barriers aren't the most comfortable. So after a while, my legs started to fall asleep. My thighs started to hurt. I even, I even told my dad, I was like, "Bro, I got them thick thighs, bro. This is not it." And yeah, I mean, I got good pictures, good views, and whatnot. And the crazy part about it is the chances of our spot being where it is. I look up, and obviously there's gonna be people in their apartments, whatever, or just office buildings or whatever, come outside of their windows and throw confetti all over the place and whatnot. And a lot of people did do that, but we ended up seeing a famous YouTuber, Casey Neistat, was in the building across the street from us. And at first, I was like, "This guy's crazy." Like, he has a camera and everything. He has this like long like mic thing, and he's like, he's trying to get like a view of the whole like parade route. And then once he showed his face, I was like, "Oh shit, that's Casey Neistat." And I told my dad, and he, of course, he's old. He doesn't know who that is. And so I basically tell him that he has like millions of subscribers. He lives in the city. He's a really cool like tech YouTuber. Um and he used to be like really, really famous back in the day. I mean, he's still famous now, but like before that, it used to be like if you saw him on the street, it'd be like, "Can I get your autograph or whatnot?" And yeah, I saw him, and I pointed him out to my dad, and I had to get my dad introduced, and even the people around me, I was telling them, and they still had no idea who it was. And so I had my dad start Casey Neistat chant, and he ended up, recording that in his YouTube video, which I did make it. I was waving in his YouTube video, and I thought that was pretty cool. That was one of those things where it's like you find a random spot in the parade and you end up seeing crazy things. People were throwing toilet paper across the street, like one side to the other. Inflatable basketball was floating around. I got to hit that once. This guy behind us, like he was closer. So there was like a bodega right behind us. So like if we were super hungry, which we were by the end of the parade, we could have gotten in there before the actual like parade because we were there because the parade started at 10, and we got there at like 6. So we were there for like 4 hours, just waiting for the parade to start. And So yeah, my dad, he was like, I don't really want to go in there because then we lose our spot, and then once we lose wow, once we lose our spot, it's like GG's because as soon as we got there, like that whole like sidewalk area just started to get filled up really really quick, and by like 8 o'clock, 8:30, there was like no room to even move, and so yeah, this guy, he was like in the bodega, and then he came out, and then he tried to like climb it, and I was like, there's like pigeon spikes up there, right? You can't really like hold on to anything up there. Little did I realize, my dad knew this, but little did I realize that there's tar on top of the little ledge area. And so once he got up there, he was like legit covered in tar, which if you've never seen tar, it's like black, gooey, sticky substance used to like prevent things from like I don't really know what the tar was doing up there. I'm pretty sure it was to prevent pigeons from going up there too. But yeah, it's just and then he got it all over himself, and then once he got down, he realized this, and his day was probably ruined because I'm telling you, he got tar like all over his legs, all over his arm, all over his clothes. And he went up there again, not as far up to where the tar is, but he had people lift him up, and he would go into the store and just like buy a bunch of like Gatorades and whatnot, and then sell them to people. And I'm pretty sure he was ripping people off because the Gatorades in there were like $3, and he was selling them for like $6 or $7. And yeah, that was just really funny. And there was this guy behind me. He was like a white guy with a beard, and he was like saying weird things about Tyler Kolek, which is by weird things I mean a lot of pause moments, a lot of just crazy stuff coming out of your mouth. Pause. And he was just being weird. He was like he acted like he was the only person who ever knew who Tyler Kolek was, which no, we all knew who Tyler Kolek was from even last year when he got playing time a little bit under Tibbs. And yeah, so and then around like because the parade started was supposed to start at 10, but then it ended up starting around like 10:15, 10:30 is when all the buses and cars and stuff and people came down the route. And of course, the first person was Clyde. He was looking really fly. His car was super duper nice, and I just I just feel for him because he had to endure the misery like we all did, and he has a championship, so he really has nothing to like, you know. It's not like this is his first championship like Ewing. Like Clyde does have two championships, but just to see him in the crowd and him supporting the Knicks all these years, even after he was done playing, is just crazy. And I just, as a Knicks fan, you just feel for him. Like he deserves this just as much as anybody does. He's on the radio or even broadcasting MSG when the Knicks won 17 games, and he still has, to entertain the people. And that's exactly what he did. When the Knicks were bad, he entertained a lot of us fans by having these cool like sayings and these, epic moments. And I hope he lives to see another championship, which hopefully next year. Because the East, I'll talk about it later, but the East didn't really get so much better where the Knicks are like not even like in the conversation anymore. So we'll talk about that later. But yeah, and then the cars started filling, and it was really cool. And honestly, I like it's crazy to say, and the championship happened like 2 weeks ago, but like it still hasn't really sunk in that the Knicks are like NBA champions. Like we're gonna get rings in October. Like, and the crazy part about the whole actual parade was when the floats and the buses were coming down. Jalen Brunson was kind of nowhere to be seen. Like people saw him. I ended up seeing. Well, I didn't like see him like in real time, but I ended up getting a video, and he was on the same float as Spike Lee, and a bunch of people. That's why people were staying a little longer than usual because they were waiting for Jalen Brunson to come. and so was I. I was like, okay, once Brunson comes, because I thought he would have his own float, that that's when we leave. And no, he was on the same floor as Spike Lee, which nobody noticed because he had his head down and he was on the other side of the float, so like the other side could probably see him as clearly, but he didn't do anything special. He was just walking around the float. When I watched the video playback, he had his head down and he was just casually on the float, like there was nothing special about it. And a lot of people were pissed, including my dad, and we all thought it was like whack that number one, Brunson didn't have his own float. Number two, he was on a float and he just nobody can really like cheer and know that he was there. And part of me thought that he didn't want the attention that comes with it. Like I would assume that he just everyone would try to jump the barriers just to go see him, which is crazy, but also not out of the realm of possibility for us Knicks fans. Really think about it. And yeah, I just thought that was crazy, and it's so funny because as we were leaving this late, this we were telling everybody like, "Hey, there's no need to stick around. Jalen Brunson is gone, whatever." And this lady, comes up to me and she's like, "Ooh, so wait, you have a video of him, right?" And I show her the video, and she's like, "Well, if I give you my number, can you send me the video?" Keep in mind this is like 2 weeks ago. Today, I still have not sent her that video. I don't even have her number on my phone anymore. I deleted it. She put it on a notes app, which I'm not gonna remember to open that. And then I ended up remembering and deleted it because I was not gonna send a random lady a video. I'm not giving a random lady my number when she could have just easily like scammed me and just done crazy things with that. So I avoided trouble there. But it was just weird. And my dad looked back at me. She was like, "That lady really gave you her phone number?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, just to see Jalen Brunson. People were that desperate to see Jalen Brunson." And yeah, after the parade, when the parade was over, we were walking back, and I told my dad, I was like, "No, no, we cannot go back in that train station. I am not going back down into the subway with like 30,000 people and crammed in a tight, hot subway." And I was just like, absolutely fucking not. So we ended up just walking around the entire like downtown area just to find a train station, get some food and whatnot. And I'm glad we did because there was a video. Oh yeah, one more thing. We were the entire time we were sitting there for the parade, waiting for it to happen. Had no service, so I was listening to music and we were just talking to people, and it was nice to do that. But at the same time, I literally couldn't text anybody, couldn't do anything. So it was kind of crazy that that happened. But yeah, anyway, we were going walking around, and I'm watching my finally get service back, and I'm watching videos of like before the parade started, like when we had a little bit after we had left the subway, which was already crazy exiting the subway to get to where we were in the parade. People were in line to get out the subway for like 30 minutes and there was no room, and I was like, not doing that. So we ended up walking around, and I literally posted on my story because it literally looked like Gotham City with the amount of people and like garbage trucks, police cars, um, just walking around the street. This one guy or boy, like probably in high school, came up to me for like an interview, and I was like, "Oh shoot, like am I gonna be on like TikTok or something?" I probably am somewhere if someone can find this dude. I don't even know. I didn't even ask his name, but he asked me would I take Allen Iverson or Darren Watkins Jr. And we all know Darren Watkins Jr. is I show speed, and so I said that, and he smiled because he said that he did this to other people and they didn't know who he was, and so he basically got him, and so I was probably one of the first people who actually knew who I show speed was, and my dad didn't even know. He was like, "What the guy ask?" And he was like, "Who's that?" And I was like, "That's I Show Speed," and that was really funny. Um, but yeah, we of course we had water during the parade, but like after the parade, we were starving, and so I was literally about to like die in like 20 minutes if we didn't get food after the parade. And it's always crazy because every time I get like every time I starve or like not the act of starving, but like Every time I'm super hungry and I end up getting food, and then I never end up finishing the food that we eat. Like I could like we went to this hot dog place, right? And the meal came with like two hot dogs and fries, and I was starving like so much. I had not eaten basically the entire day up until that point, and this was like 11:30. Keep in mind we were up since like 3, so it's like 8 hours without eating anything. We had water, of course, but we get to the hot dog place, and I ended up only eating one hot dog and a little bit of fries, and then I'm full. And I'm like, how does that even work? Like I'm literally on knocking on death's door as far as like I'm that hungry, and then you know we get to there and I'm full after one hot dog and a little bit of fries. Like my body's just weird like that. And yeah, I mean that's just all I have from the Knicks parade. I mean it was just really cool. It was really epic to have a nice spot and get really cool videos and angles and views and to see Casey Neistat and be in his YouTube video. It was a really, really epic day, and it literally burnt me out for like the next like couple of days, which is why I haven't uploaded a podcast episode since then. And it kind of hurt because I also went away last week, like in the middle of the week when all these like Giannis trades and all this extension stuff was happening, and I got really like anxious because I wanted to like get on here and like talk about it, and I couldn't do that. So this is why this episode is gonna be maybe a little bit longer than usual. I don't know. It might not be, because while there's a lot of stuff to talk about, some of the stuff is like really just like it is what it is. Like there's not really much to dive into about it. But yeah, I love the parade. I said this like a couple days ago. October can't come fast enough with the Yankees getting swept by the Red Sox and the Knicks getting their rings in October. October is gonna be the month of joy and happiness. And the good thing about this is there's no pressure on the Knicks anymore. Like we did it. Like I mean, we can obviously we always want more, and this team is good enough to at least get back to the finals and whatnot. But like, there's no more heartbreak. There's no more getting over the hump. Like we actually did it. Mike Brown, black head coach, first black head coach to do it in a long time, or maybe ever. I don't know. Which was really nice. And I was talking to my mom because we were talking about WNBA, and I had forgotten that Dawn Staley, interviewed for the Knicks job when they were scrambling for Knicks head coaches, and I was like, I wonder, I wonder if how the story of if the Knicks had won with Dawn Staley as a head coach, how that would have number one impacted the league, number two impacted the WNBA, because you know, anything a woman does in the NBA potentially is going to affect the WNBA just off of pure like, attention and like seeing that a woman can lead a men's uh team to a championship. And she's also black, so that would be all really good. And I was like, but then again, she's also a huge Philly fan, so like her winning a championship in New York, would that be like a betrayal? I mean, obviously she wouldn't care. She wouldn't give a shit because she wouldn't have won a ring, so that doesn't matter. But just like thinking of the optics of it all, and also she did say that the WNBA or not the NBA was not ready for a female head coach, and I 100% agree with that. But I think she would be the first to actually do it well, and on a market like the Knicks, where we as basketball fans, as a city, as a state, we know who Don Staley is. Like a lot of other places, a lot of other like cities and whatnot, they know who Don Staley is, but they don't know like who she is, if that makes sense. Like me and my family, we know who she is. There are a lot of people in New York who know who Don Staley is, and so her being a Knicks head coach would like that would be amazing. The city would rally behind her like crazy, like they did with Mike Brown. And yeah, it's just really nice to see that the Knicks had a championship parade. Um, OG was smiling. of course, he was cheesing. Uh, and yeah, even the speech by Mamdani when they got the keys to the city hall, that was amazing. He talked about all of the Knicks basketball lore, um, from Amari Stoudemire to Willis Reed to even Carmelo Anthony and everything in between. And it was a really, really nice speech coming from our mayor. And I personally think he's the best mayor we've had in a really, really long time. And I can't even say we because I don't live in the city anymore. But he just feels like he's my mayor. Like, uh, it's just been a crazy ride. Looking forward to October, another season. I'm itching to get back to watching Knicks basketball because so many things are happening around the league that the NBA is going to be really exciting next year. And with that being said, Giannis, Giannis did get traded. Um, kind of, I'm kind of underwhelmed considering that the package that was thrown out for Giannis was exactly the same as what this trade is, and that package was being thrown out like months ago, and yet neither side would like agree to it months ago, which is just crazy in my opinion. Like this could have ended so long ago because this package was exactly the same as it has been for the entire like almost like 3 or 4 months, which pisses me off. But anyway, here are the details. So the Bucks received Tyler Hero, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Khalil Ware, Kasparis Yakachonis, 2027, 2031, and 2033 first round picks, and a 2030 pick swap. And then the Heat receive Giannis and Bobby Portis. Now, the Giannis brothers are confirmed not going to be in this trade, and the Heat are not going to sign them. And the Bucks, with that 2027 first round pick, they chose Nate Ament, who is just really good. I definitely need to study the draft, which that'll be the next episode. By the way, if you're wondering, I I missed pretty much the entire draft. Like I know who like the first 5 picks are and like their like games or whatnot, but like after that, I just have no clue, and I want to study the entire draft, at least the first round. So we're gonna do that. But yeah, the package of Hero, Ware, and Jaquez. Maybe Kasparis wasn't in the original package, but like those 3 players have been in the talks for this trade basically since Giannis said he was interested in the Heat, which was like this is going back to like March, maybe even sooner than that. And it's kind of underwhelming at one. So yes, it's underwhelming. At the same time, I'm also relieved that he didn't go to the Celtics because if he went to the Celtics, my Knicks, that would have been a real issue. Pairing Tatum and Giannis together, that would have been really, really dangerous. That's easily the best duo in the league by far. Um, and so the Heat definitely get better, but I don't really see them as like a real like super duper threat to the Knicks as of now if they don't make any more moves, which I assume they will because they still have a lot of pieces left on their team. Um, and yeah, I give the Bucks a B plus for the simple fact that all the picks that they got, and we all know with the new draft lottery and next year and the rules and whatnot that first round picks could be either super duper valuable or super duper shit, and so the gamble of it being really valuable is worth it if you're trading a guy like Giannis. And they also got Nate Ament, so they end up getting a really good draft pick out of it too. Um, Hero, he's cool. He's like I don't really know what to say about Tyler Hero other than like he's cool. The real pieces of this trade for the Bucks would be Khalil Ware and Kasparis Yakachonis. Khalil Ware had games where he had 20 points, 20 rebounds, and then he had games where he wouldn't even play like 15 minutes because Eric Spoelstra saw something in Khalil Ware where it's like he couldn't get consistent playing time. And so we all know on the Bucks he will get consistent playing time, and this means that Miles Turner will be on the trade block, which I don't know what teams would even want Miles Turner. Well, I mean, yes, there are teams that would want Miles Turner, but like, what would his trade value be? So Khalil Ware would be your starting center probably going into this season, And then Kasparis Siakachonis is a guy who may have been overlooked, but second half of the season he was actually really good for the Heat. And you project him to be a pretty good piece on this Bucks team going forward. Jaime Jaquez Jr. was a sixth man of the year candidate, so he has potential to really, just get a nice groove now that he has more of a playing time in a role. He may not start, or he may start in this team. Who knows? But yeah, the Bucks did receive cool things. I mean, if it were the Celtics, it would have just been Jaylen Brown and a couple of picks. Which Jaylen Brown is talent wise and player wise is the best player you could have gotten out of a Giannis trade. But the fact that the Celtics weren't willing to part with Hugo Gonzalez and Baylor Scheinman is kind of crazy. Like I would do that. I would give those guys a for Giannis in a heartbeat, especially since you have a guarantee from Giannis that he'll re-sign. Like I just don't understand why you wouldn't throw those players in. The Heat get Bobby Portis back too, which he's cool. He'll be a nice bench piece. So now your starting lineup for the Heat is Davion Mitchell, Norman Powell, which he'll probably re-sign. So Davion Mitchell, Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, which they still have Giannis and Bam. That's a really good starting lineup. Like it's honestly like top 4, 5 in the East. But you project the Celtics to still be better, whether they keep Jaylen Brown or trade him. I mean, I'll get into that. There's a whole issues with that. The Knicks are gonna be better. I would say the Pistons might be better if they make a trade, but um the what other teams are there in the East that the Cavs might still be better. The Sixers, who knows? Like the Pacers are back, but we don't know. Like they could be a fifth seed, and nobody would be surprised. So if you're the Heat, you can convince yourself you could be a top 2, top 3 seed, and at the end of the season next year. But that's if Giannis plays more than like 50 games, which he hasn't played more than like 50, 60 games since probably they won a championship. Um, and that's if you're projecting, all these teams that were, good in the East like the Pistons to not have as good of a regular season as they did last year. And so if you're the Heat, this trade is I give the Heat an A. You're getting Giannis back, and you're only getting rid of like I guess Khalil Ware and Kasparis are the only real pieces you super duper care about. Um, and again the picks. So yeah, I mean I'm just kind of glad it's over. This Giannis trade saga thing was going on way too long, even before last season. Like in the offseason of 2025, he was saying he wants to go to the Knicks, and the Knicks shut that down because they just wanted another year of running it back with this team to see what they can actually do. And they ended up, doing the worst case scenario for Giannis, which was them winning a championship, and so that deal was off the table completely. And I personally said that the Knicks this going into the playoffs that it was a win-win because like either you win the championship or you lose the championship and you get Giannis. Like in my opinion, that was just a win-win. Um, and they ended up doing the other side of the win, which was winning the whole goddamn thing. And yeah, so Giannis is on the Heat now. Probably will sign an extension soon. So him and Adebayo will be the front court, which we'll have to see how that works because the spacing on that is gonna be nasty. And while Bam does like to take mid ranges and doesn't really attack the paint at all, Giannis will attack the paint. So we're interested to see that spacing in that mid range area because Giannis also does take mid ranges too. In fact, he's taken more mid ranges every single year of his career. Like the percentage of shots in the mid range has increased. I also think he's like pretty much money from mid range at this point. So interested to see that fit. And I think the Heat, like I said earlier, still have more moves to make. And Spoelstra's a really good coach. So Giannis, Bam, that duo with Spoelstra, that's basically a big three. So the Knicks should be a little concerned. But we already won a championship, so there's really nothing to be concerned about, truly. But yeah, that trade happened, and then there's a bunch of things that happened in the last couple of like weeks ever since the Knicks won the championship. Teams are, especially in the East, are gearing up to try and take the Knicks down. And the West is trying to see if they can match up with Wemby and OKC. And so the first thing on here is the Trae Young 4-year, $212 million extension. This extension, when I saw this, low key, not even low key, literally pissed me off. Because I don't know why the Wizards would give him a 4-year, $200 million extension when you just drafted AJ DeBonsa and you're tying up $50 million a year to Trae Young. I don't even think in today's game Trae Young is worth $50 million. Like, I know Brunson took a pay cut, but in my mind and in other GMs' minds, they should be thinking about, is our point guard better than Jalen Brunson? And the answer is probably no, unless you're Shea or Luka. And after that, if you're talking about contract extensions, you should be like, if he's not better than Jalen Brunson, ain't no way I'm paying him nearly almost double his contract. And I just don't understand it. Like, from a basketball standpoint, it makes sense to keep Trae Young a little bit longer. Everybody in the basketball world, even like real analysts, thought that Trae Young was going to sign a 2-year extension, probably worth like $100 million, just so you could keep him for another 2 years, see how him, AJ, Sar, all these young players in the Wizards, Koulibaly, Trey Johnson, and whatnot work together. But man, signing a 4-year deal for Trae Young is kind of crazy, and the Hawks really, honestly, just dodged the bullet with that, because they made the playoffs when it looked like they weren't gonna make the playoffs with Trae Young. They ended up making the playoffs and making a competitive series against the Knicks up until game 4. So they had 3 competitive games against the championship team, and yeah, if you're the Wizards, like, your front office was doing so well, whether it's drafting, tanking at the right time, even trading for Trae Young, which was a low risk, high reward type of trade, trading for Anthony Davis, which we don't know if he's gonna stay there, but you could either keep him or you trade him and get some value back. And to do this is like, in my opinion, is like a step backwards. Now we'll have to see, because the Wizards could be like a 6th seed next year, and that is a lot of progression. But also, Trae Young has an injury history. We know the talent of AJ, but we just have to see it before we actually like can judge it. And to just tie up that much money to Trae Young, just, it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it makes sense to them. Maybe it makes sense to other people who are analyzing this, but me personally, I just don't see how Trae Young is worth $50 million a year. Not in 2026. Maybe like 4 years ago, sure, but his defense is just really bad. He doesn't even, he's like one of those players where it's like, yeah, he's a small guard, so he's never going to be a good defender. But it's like he doesn't even try. Like, James Harden doesn't try on defense. Uh, Jalen Brunson is like one of those few small guards, or even just like defensive liabilities, that actually gives effort on the defensive end, whether it's taking charges or swiping at the ball, or just contesting shots. Trae Young doesn't do any of that, so I guess you're just banking on a back line of AD and Sar. But even AD, he's not gonna play a lot of games. So, ah, man, literally, I said this already, but when I saw this extension, my heart just dropped. Like, genuinely, I was like, that's he's like Ben Simmons, where it's like he's stealing money at this point. Anyway, moving on. This extension made me happy. Io signing a 5-year, $112 million extension. This extension, I was like, oh, thank God the Wolves kept him, because I knew other teams would probably, try to sign Io for like a 4-year deal with worth a lot of money. But for him to actually get his bag and to get a long deal secured on the Timberwolves, where he actually played really well. He had 43 points off the bench in a playoff game against the Nuggets, which is like first in like NBA history, I think, or something like that. He's been really good. Um, and I hear a lot of talk about him not being an advanced stats. Like if you look at advanced stats and you look at IO, it looks like he's not a good player. But if you just use eye test, he's a really good player. He's a good slasher. He improved his 3-point shooting every year. He's like a 40% 3-point shooter, even though his shot looks a little funky. And he's gonna play defense, which on the Wolves, that's kind of their identity. Identity is like getting like defensive guards and wings, but can also be like an option scoring wise. And Io, man, I'm so happy for him. And there was a little rumor that he might return to the Bulls because the Bulls have a lot of money to give, and I guess he really liked playing with the Bulls, and the Bulls only really traded him because they felt like they had to at that point. But yeah, no, I'm really happy about this extension. $22 million a year for Isles, low key kind of a steal. I feel like he's worth at least like 25 to $30 million, and to lock him up for 5 years next to Ant, kind of cool in my opinion. And then we get to a trade that shocked a lot of people, which is the Lamelo Ball trade. Um, yeah. So for both teams, it kind of doesn't really make sense. For the Wolves, I give it a B minus, just because I think that the talent alone of pairing Lamelo and Anthony Edwards is really going to be dynamic, and it allows Ant to not be doubled every possession like he has been in late in games, especially in the playoffs. And that'll give Ant a lot of room to work, and he'll be even better next year. And LaMelo's like a pass first point guard. So like guys like Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels, who offensively you're not really relying too much on, can get really easy looks. Especially McDaniels, like if he gets easy looks at the beginning of games and then he just starts to get in the rhythm, because we know he can score 20 to 25 a game if he's aggressive. But having Lamelo like give him easy buckets is really cool. The only thing about this is you lose a lot of defense trading away Naz Reid, and Julius Randle. Randle wasn't in this trade, but like they still traded Julius Randle for basically nothing. Which you, as a Wolves person in their front office, as a Wolves fan, everyone could see Julius Randle just had to go anyway. But to get nothing of value back for him is kind of crazy. But yeah, Naz Reid was beloved in Minnesota. People who got Naz Reid tattoos like 2 years ago, like in the playoffs or whatever, because he was that good. He's probably one of the best backup centers in the league by far. And so the Hornets, they lack size, and so Naz Reid is a super duper reliable option for them. But trading away Lamelo Ball, just for Naz Reid is kind of a head scratcher, even though the Hornets did get a lot of picks, and with the new draft lottery and rules and whatnot, like I said with the Bucks trade, like those picks could be really valuable. So at the end of the day, in like 3 or 4 years, the Hornets could have won this trade, but I don't think so right now. Lamelo Ball, not only did like Charlotte love him and the fans love him. Well, Charlotte didn't love him because they were obviously traded him and they had him on the trade block for a little bit now. But like, you had a real sample size of Lamelo Ball, Con Knipple, and Brandon Miller, like just being like really good. They were 40 and 21 when those three played together on the court last season, which is 61 games. And 40 and the the crazy thing about that is Phil Jackson, had this rule where it's like, if you win 40 games before you lose 20, you're a championship contender. The Hornets went 40-21, which is almost as close to that as possible. And so you're literally, according to that rule, you're literally putting them close to contender status, which is crazy considering how many years of misery and bad basketball we've seen from the Hornets. And they were building something, and we thought next year, at least I thought, they would be a legit playoff team. And yeah, I don't understand, like, what, like, personally, I would give it another year of this before you actually, like, consider trading Lamelo. Um, and yeah, they're committing to the core of Colin Knippel and Brandon Miller, which not a bad idea, honestly. Lamelo, he has an injury history. We all know his ankles probably wouldn't hold up, and you know, I mean, you had to trade him now rather than get ahead of it, rather than him missing a whole ton of games and then them being right back into playing again this year. Because a lot of East teams either get their star players back or just got better in general. And so you're not really looking at the Hornets to jump super far unless they have like a crazy year like they did second half of last year, which is entirely possible because we had a real sample size of it being true. But I just don't know, like they were building something and now it feels like they took a step back, which they also did give Kobe White his extension. So they're essentially saying, hey, um, Kobe White, you're gonna be our starting point guard, which he's not a point guard. We've seen it time and time again on the Bulls. Like, Kobe White's amazing. He's an amazing two guard. He is not a point guard. He's not gonna set guys up and make players around him better. Not a knock on Kobe White at all. He's an amazing guard. Just from a point guard specific like aspect of the game, he's just not gonna do that. He doesn't have that responsibility. And so to ask him to do that is gonna be a little tough. And one could argue the crazy year that Khan had and the amount of like open looks and open threes and whatnot, even though he was hitting contested threes too. But the product of Khan being like second in rookie of the year is largely due to Lamelo giving him the ball and getting him open looks and Melo collapsing the defense and being a pass first point guard. Lamelo's a really good passer. I think he hasn't had a season where he hasn't had like 7 assists since his rookie year, and he had like 5 or 6 assists. So he's really gonna pass the rock, which is really good for the Timberwolves. And you're just gonna lose that with the Hornets, and it's just gonna be hard to make that up. And it's also crazy because the starting lineup of Lamelo, Khan, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Musa Diabate, second half of the season was quite literally the best starting lineup, the best starting five in the entire association, like numbers wise and like eye test wise. Like that's not even an exaggeration. Like you could look at the Spurs starting lineup, OKC with their 5 million different starting lineups, which are all just super good. Even the Knicks starting lineup, the Celtics when JT came back, the Hornets were the best out of all those. With those five guys, they were the best starting lineup. And so to not carry that into next season is kind of a head scratcher in my opinion. Um, and by the way, I gave the Hornets a C plus, mainly because of the trade or the picks and how potentially valuable they could be. They also do have a bunch of pick swaps, but apparently only one of the pick swaps is actually like a legit pick swap. The other two are like favorable to like the second favorable team, whatever the hell that means. It basically means that only one pick swap is legit. And so you're really banking on that 2033 first round pick to be valuable, which Anthony Edwards could be gone from the Timberwolves by then. In fact, that's a close guarantee that by 2033 Anthony Edwards is gone. Um and yeah, that pick could be really good. And the only reason for the Wolves it also doesn't make sense because you didn't really get better because your front court is now going to be Jaden McDaniels, a really good bear, and Yohan Berenger, pretty much. And while yes, there's still some trades the Wolves should make, because I don't think you can go into next season with a starting lineup of Lamelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, Ayo Dosunmu, Jaden McDaniels, and Rudy Gobert. Like defensively, there's only, I mean, like you're asking Anthony Edwards to guard forwards because Jaden McDaniels is not going to guard fours or fives, and you're banking on Berenger to like actually play minutes. Whereas if you had Naz Reid, Berenger would be like, a guy who could still come in, but you're not super reliable on. Now it's like you're literally he has to play like at least like 15 to 20 minutes a game. Um, and yeah, that's a really small lineup. And it's crazy because while we expect the Wolves and we want them to make more moves because that starting lineup is just way too small, they only have like $10 to $13 million to spend because of all the max contracts they have, and just giving Io his extension. And Dante DiVincenzo is still on contract, even though he's gonna be hurt the entire year. And so, yeah, they don't have a lot of wiggle room to really like round out the edges of their roster. So it's gonna be interesting to see what they do. The Hornets, um, I found this out like literally yesterday, but they also traded Miles Bridges to the Suns, which that trade makes kind of sense for the Suns, although you lose Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal, which are really key rotational players. But the starting lineup would be for the Suns would be Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Miles Bridges, Mark Williams, which is really not a bad starting lineup at all. Like I could see them really still staying within that 7 to 6 range in the West, which is pretty respectable, I guess. Um, and yeah, for the Hornets, they get back Miles Bridge or Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal, which are steals in my opinion. Because that's too because the Hornets didn't really have a bench outside of like Kobe White last year, so getting two bench players is really really good for them. Um, and yeah, that's the Lamelo Ball trade in a nutshell. The Wolves get a B minus purely off of like talent and the pairing of Lamelo and Anthony Edwards. And I also saw people say that that's the best backcourt in the league now. And yes, I could see that being true, but also people forget about Luca and AR, which AR just signed his extension for 4 years, $185 million, which props to him because he's an undrafted player. So going from undrafted to basically getting a max contract almost is kind of crazy. And to see this happen probably means that LeBron's not going to return to the Lakers, I would assume. And it doesn't pigeonhole the Lakers as much as if he had signed for a lot more than that, Austin Reeves, I mean. Because now, if LeBron James is off the books, uh, and we don't know what's gonna happen with Rui. There are a lot of teams that are interested in him. You could try and like make an offer for like a guy like Jalen Duren or Walker Kessler, which would be huge because Luka's been advocating for a center ever since he got there, and we've seen what happens when Luka has good centers. And unfortunately, DeAndre Ayton exercises $8.1 million option to stay with the Lakers, so that kind of sucks. But yeah, huge deal for Austin Reeves. I mean, that's just awesome, especially since he didn't really take a pay cut, but he also didn't take the full like $200 million he was worth, which is nice. And so yeah, Lamelo and Anthony Edwards probably top two, top three backcourt. I would still give the edge to Luka and AR personally, and the only reason I'm doing that is because Luka, and also we've seen what that backcourt can do. We have yet to see what Lamelo and Ant can do. And while we project them to be really good, and for this to be really good for Anthony Edwards and for them to both thrive as a backcourt, we've seen like 0 minutes of it, so can't give them the edge so far. Jalen Brown. Talked about the Celtics being interested in Giannis and the package being Jalen Brown. And this is like the second year, well, second year in a row, but like this is like easily like the fourth or fifth year of Jaylen Brown being on the Celtics and being in trade rumors, and this is like the second actual like trade that Jaylen Brown has been offered in. The other one was back in like 2022, where it's like Kevin Durant. Uh, it was like Jaylen Brown and Derek White for Kevin Durant, which I'm so glad they did not do that because it ended up in them winning a championship, keeping Derek White and Jaylen Brown. And I know Celtics fans would have been absolutely pissed if that had happened. But yeah, the Jaylen Brown saga is the fact that he's really frustrated. He's saying that last year was his favorite year, being a number one option, which clearly means that he wants to be a number one option on a team. And it's hard to think that him and Tatum, their relationship is always gonna be cool. But like it's hard to think that Jaylen Brown doesn't feel a little bit like, what the fuck? Like, I just came off like a year where I was like top five in MVP, and y'all are still dangling me around there like Tatum is just like this super duper golden boy. Which yes, Tatum is the better player, and for the Celtics to trade Jason Tatum would be idiotic. It'd be like trading Luca, and also trading Jaylen Brown is kind of dumb unless you're getting Giannis back, or unless you're getting like Giannis is the only person I would dangle Jaylen Brown in a trade for if you're the Celtics. And we know the Celtics have to get better because they cannot run it back with this same roster that just lost to the 7 seed 76ers. Um, and even would have lost to the Knicks if Tatum was healthy and they got to the second round. And so you're not satisfied if you're the Celtics with a first round exit or even a second round exit like the year before that too. And so they have to get better. Does trading Jaylen Brown make them better? Probably not, because you're not getting Giannis anymore. So at that point, if you're the Celtics, you keep him. But if you're Jaylen Brown, you just want out of there because you're in trade rumors. You know, you're not. The team is obviously dangling you around there, like like you're not super duper valuable. And analytics. This is why you don't listen to analytics. This is why when Kenny Atkinson said that analytically the Cavs were up 2-0. Um, this is why you just you think of analytics and you're like you basically throw them out the window at this point in the NBA. And analytics are still super valuable, so I'm not gonna say that. But like for analytics to say that Jaylen Brown is your seventh best player on a team is like honestly as a basketball fan and analyst, you don't even like think twice about that. You just think that's a load of bullshit. Like you just move on. Like no one's taking that stat seriously. Um and yeah, it's interesting to see because the Rockets are interested in Jaylen Brown. And if you're the Celtics, would you want back Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr. and like Reed Shepard? Like does that entice you? Like I don't know. Cuz like Şengün is kind of ass. Jabari Smith Jr. is cool, but he's not. He's just that. He's just cool. And then Reed Shepard is also like really cool, but like if you're trying to maintain a defensive culture over there in Boston, where pretty much everyone on your team can defend, getting back Reed Shepard's like a step backward in that regard. But yeah, I just because then now you have Stephen A. Smith, saying really nasty things about Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown staying on stream and Twitch and just yapping, and it's just like a never ending like saga with those two, and like if you're a Celtics fan, you're just kind of over this. Like at this point, it's either you keep Jaylen Brown and he keeps his mouth shut, or you just trade him and move on and bank on Tatum, you know, coming back to form, which he will. Tatum will be back next year. He will be really good next year. So I don't know. It's just kind of a situation where it's like as a Knicks fan, Like you're seeing like it's like I'm on the playground and you see a bunch of kids over there fighting and you're laughing and you watch as they just destroy each other and you're like ha 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 he he he. At least it's not me. And I wonder, because is this how Karl Anthony Towns felt when he was dangled in trades pretty much all of last offseason with like Giannis and whatnot? And then he came to next season and he put all those trades to bed. Is that what Jalen Brown's gonna do? Because like that those are two players now that Giannis is basically almost ruined. Karl Anthony Towns and now Jalen Brown. So there's a world where Jalen Brown can return next year and just you know be okay with being on the Celtics. But if you're the Celtics, you still have to get better either way. So I don't know. A couple more things happened in the offseason. CJ McCollum re-signed with the Hawks, which I think this is a really good re-signing, especially since it's a 1 year, $21 million extension. So you keep CJ, who is arguably the Knicks' most like like thorn in the side of these playoffs. He gave the Knicks the most trouble for sure. Which is really funny considering it was a first round exit for the Hawks. But yeah, cool signing. I still think the Hawks need a point guard. CJ's cool, but he's not a point guard. It's similar to like Devin Booker with the Suns. Like we know Devin Booker and we know who he is, but he's not a point guard, and so it just looks weird. But for the Hawks, I felt like you had to just keep CJ after the second half of the season he had in the playoffs, especially. And so losing CJ for nothing, you're basically at that point losing Trey Young for nothing if you let CJ walk. So that's cool. OKC made a couple trades. They basically shedded salary. They sent Isaiah Joe to the Pistons, which was really underrated. In my opinion, that's a steal. Um, Isaiah Joe's a sharpshooter, defensive wing. I think he could easily start on this team. Like if we're being honest, um, if the Pistons don't make any more moves, which they definitely should, you should not look at Isaiah Joe and be like, "This is gonna save you." Absolutely not. No, 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 no. But yeah, and they sent Aaron Wiggins to the Hawks actually, which could be another steal, another cool bench piece for them. And so yeah, they went under the luxury tax. They're still in the second apron because they re-signed Hartenstein to another 3-year deal worth $75 million, which the report said like 5 years, 150, which cool, but like we all know he signed for 3 years after like this year, so that was pretty cool by them to at least save some money and get rid of players that didn't really contribute to their playoff run last year, which OKC keeps doing, which teams should do. Like if you have players that aren't contributing on your playoff runs, then you should at least think about like shedding salary at the bare minimum. And breaking news: Marcus Smart declines his $5.4 million player option and will become a free agent. Which is kind of expected. I mean, Marcus Smart had a decent season last year. He was pretty much healthy for the whole season, which he hasn't been healthy since he's been a member of the Celtics. So if you're a team like the Rockets, you could entertain getting a guy like Marcus Smart. The Knicks don't want to go into the second apron, James Dolan said, and it's really now it's their bench is in question with Mitchell Robinson probably gonna be gone. Landry Shamet probably gonna be gone, which will suck. I would miss Shamet a lot more than Mitch Robinson because I think giving Huck Porty time next year is okay. Like, yeah, he's not Mitch Robinson, of course, but like in the minutes that I did see Huck Porty play, he was pretty decent. Um, so Shamet would be the only guy I'd be like really sad to go, and Clarkson. Those two I'd be really sad, but they did re-sign Alvarado. He declined his $4 million extension, 1 year extension, to sign a new 3 year, $14 million, which is the exact same money per year, just longer. So you have him locked up as a backup point guard with Brunson for the next 3 years at least. which I thought was really cool. He's from Brooklyn, so he stays in the area, and he was really good in the finals. And honestly, just as a backup point guard, he's just really valuable. He could play next to Brunson. He could play without Brunson. Ball handler, good passer, good defensive guy, good energy. Like he brings energy. So exactly what the Knicks needed. And Kawhi, back to the Raptors? Question mark. The Raptors are one of the teams Kawhi is interested in signing a long-term extension with, which is interesting because he did leave Toronto when he could have re-signed with Toronto, and he ended up going to the Clippers and ended up really doing nothing other than seeing his family and being close to his family. So him going back to the Raptors would be really crazy. Um, and the Clippers, what would you want back? Would you want back him? You don't want back him the contract of Emmanuel quickly, right? And I was looking at this earlier, and I was like, if you're the Clippers, a possible trade you could probably want back would be like RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl. But even that, it's like Jakob Poeltl's contract's really bad too. And RJ Barrett's cool, but he was traded for OG Anunoby, and we all saw how that turned out. And so you're trading him for Kawhi, like that's just I don't know. But you know, these things like these happen, like random shit just starts happening in free agency, and that's why I love it. You'll see guys being linked to teams that you never thought they'd be linked to, and it's just like it's just a crazy time in the NBA. It's like as a basketball fan, it's like everything you want. You want the league to be shaken up. You want to see different teams being involved in star guys. And so a wing duo of Kawhi and Scotty would just absolutely be insane. Like that would be nuts. And Kawhi has had healthy years, 2 years in a row now. So sample size of him being hurt and whatnot for an entire year is just over. I think you can end that narrative. He will be healthy going to next season. So if you're the Raptors, pull the trigger. Well, if you're the if you're the Raptors, absolutely pull the trigger on this to bring Kawhi back. Hell yeah. Um, and yeah, actually, the Clippers would probably want Brandon Ingram because you're not. Because if you're the Raptors, you're not keeping Ingram, Kawhi, and Scotty all on the same team. That would be super like counterproductive. But yeah, that's I saw that and I was like really like interested, and I hope that does happen. Anyway, speaking of, so pretty much that's all the off-season talk I have. Other than I have 8 teams that I this is in order of how much like the urgency of them to make moves this offseason. At number one, I have the Pistons after last year's postseason flame out and being a number one seed. You just cannot look like the past 2 years. You're looking at Cade and you're like, okay, Cade is really good. He just needs help, and you just need to round out the edges of this roster, and you really need to just get more talent into the door with the Pistons because this team is not good enough to win a championship. And at this point, with Cade and with Duran potentially re-signing, obviously, and Asar, you want to like maximize this team's like window, especially when you're gonna have to pay Asar soon because you're gonna have to pay during this off season, and so this team is gonna get a lot more expensive really soon. And so if you get a guy like Trey Murphy the third, which is would be a really cool move, that would be really good for them. Or if you like, MPJ might be too expensive now, but like they should have hopped on the MPJ at the trade deadline last year. He's another guy who'd be really cool. And yeah, just the way you lost last season in the playoffs, you really just need to make a move. The Lakers are number 2 on this list. With Luka Doncic, you need to maximize Luka. You need to get Luka a ring. You need to get him a center. They re-signed Austin Reeves, which is a good step. You need to round the edges of this roster, and yeah, you just want to make Luka happy. And honestly, they just need to make moves just to make sure that you didn't. Well, obviously you traded for Luka for nothing, so that's already cool. But like now, it's like you got Luka. Now what? What do you have to show for it? So I'm not saying that they're gonna miraculously make a team that is gonna be better than OKC and Spurs, but to put pieces around Luka to where it's like now you have good pieces and then you have Luka. Now that's the idea they should be going in like into this season with. At number three, I already mentioned them, but the Celtics, this city, this team, Tatum, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Joe Mazzulla, these are all players that you'd want to see back in the finals and or at least Eastern Conference Finals, and they were not good enough as presently constructed to make it there. Um, and the gap year really was a gap year. Like I know they won 56 games, and were a second seed, and easily should have wiped the floor with the 76ers. They were not good enough to beat the Knicks, as we saw, and that means that they were kind of far away from making it back to the Eastern Conference Finals. So they definitely need to make moves. On number four, the Nuggets. Now this is a weird one because I don't think they can run it back with the same roster, with the exact same starting five, and you're probably going to lose Tim Hardaway Jr. I think Bruce Brown is a free agent too, so maybe you lose him, and so now you're back to square one with making a good roster on Jokic. And I've seen a lot of rumors with Jamal Murray in them, and I just think you should keep Jamal Murray at this point. And the odd man out is unfortunately Aaron Gordon, which I think you should still keep Aaron Gordon as well. But it's just like he hasn't been healthy in like 2 years now. And if he's not going to be healthy, you might as well try to trade while his value is still relatively high. But I just don't know what you get back. And they're just a team where you have to maximize Jokic. Number five, the Rockets. They still need a point guard. I know Fred VanVleet is cool, and he's coming off an ACL tear, so he's not going to be the same Fred. They just need a guard. They need a dynamic guard. And while the name John Morant has been thrown out there, I don't really like that for them. But they definitely do just need a guard in general because I don't really see them trading Kevin Durant unless you're like getting something back super valuable in return, which for a 38-year-old Kevin Durant, a lot of teams would absolutely jump on it. But at the same time, would they give back a lot in value? Probably not. Number six, I already talked about them, but the Heat, I think they still need to make more moves around the edges of this roster because they basically lost like three or four key rotational players for Giannis. And while you still have Bobby Portis coming off the bench, Norman Powell is not a guarantee to resign. And Davion Mitchell's cool, but like, is he a starting point guard on a championship roster? Probably not. Number seven, Orlando Magic. I think with Franz, they were easily like poised to probably make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think if Franz was healthy, I think they would have beat the Cavs in the second round personally. Um, but that didn't happen, and they were a first round exit, blew a 3-1 lead. And the odd man guy out, unfortunately, is a guy like Jalen Suggs, where I think you have to trade him. Number eight is the Wolves. And honestly, the Wolves should be higher in this list now that I think about it. Because, like I said earlier, you just need to round out the edges of this roster because the starting lineup is going to be cool, but it's not going to be like on the same level as like the Spurs or OKC, which is as a Wolves like GM and a fan, you think like you're like not on that tier, but like you're on the tier below with like the Lakers and like maybe a team like the Rockets. but you want in that tier, you want to be the highest in that tier. So in order to do that, you have to make more roster moves. And we all know Jaden McDaniels is a great defender, but him guarding like real fours in the West in the league is just not viable. Um, and once Rudy Gobert goes to that bench, it's like GG's with your defense. They're getting cooked. So, but yeah, that's all the offseason talk I had. I wanted to save the NBA draft talk just for a whole nother episode because I feel like that is gonna take an hour in itself, and I don't really want to have a 2 hour episode, especially since I'm getting back into the groove of doing episodes. So I just wanted to talk about the offseason, the things that I missed while I was gone. And I'm pretty sure literally as soon as I wrap this episode up, there's going to be more moves. And between now and next episode, I really hope so. Um, but yeah, that's really all I have. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.